But we had the chance to sit down with Representative Steve Russell about major headlines in Washington and about his re-election campaign. It's part of our Commitment 2018 coverage. Before the allegations surfaced, you came out and said, before the initial hearing, you said, it should be an interesting week, but I have full confidence that he'll be confirmed, and I think that's good for America. After everything that has surfaced, do you still feel that same way?
I do, because he is a justice that believes in the Constitution, that the bench should not interpret the law by any other standard, and that the bench should not create law. And so any justice with that type of benchmark is enormously qualified. It's sad that we see the debacle that has resulted, but the end result was really no different than when we began, other than to put deep wounds into America and to embarrass two families, Mr. Blasey Ford and Mr. Kavanaugh's families. It's very sad what has happened. A
lot of Americans who say, I'm not convinced he didn't do it. But how do you ruin somebody's life and career off of anecdotal evidence alone? Are you convinced that he is innocent of what she claims?
There is no substantiative evidence to the contrary that he's innocent. And we have a standard, innocent until proven guilty. It is a standard that we must uphold. If we don't, then what? The most sensational accusation wins? We often see in criminal justice reform discussions about people maybe taking pleas when they're innocent because they don't want to roll the dice. Maybe they don't have the type of representation that they could afford or something of that nature. So on the one side, we're talking about innocent people and we don't need to railroad them. But when it comes to this, that's not a convenient argument, and then people want to flip the tables. But look, if you were to take a preponderance of evidence standard or even a lower standard of evidence, it meant nothing. He had FBI investigations. He had thorough investigations. He even had an investigation going into the confirmation hearing. None of this had come up. So there was very little by any standard with which anyone would even get an indictment, let alone a conviction.
What's maybe your message to Americans who are victims of sexual assault? And they say after this is why people don't come forward.
My message to anyone on any wrongdoing is that, look, we have a great country. We can play a blame game or point to other people or difficult times that we go through and the hurt and the things that are there, but we have to trust our system. It's the only one we have. And so report something. If something has legitimately happened that is wrong, report it. Do the right thing. The right thing usually has a way of working out in the long run.
I know you just threw your support behind the passing of that military modernization bill, and a small part of that was providing pay raises to military families. You yourself have been a soldier. You understand the importance of that better than anybody else.
Well, it's one of the biggest pay increases that we've seen since 2010. I often joke that we say nothing is too good for the troops and nothing is what we often give them. And that's been true in not only modernization and equipment, certainly in the United States Army and the Marine Corps, but it's also true in the pay raises that we have. We ask so much of our men and women in uniform, such a tiny force that defends our great republic. And this is the least that we can do, is to make sure that they're properly equipped and properly compensated.
You were taking on Kendra Horn in the general election come November. You've been in office for several years, but for people who might just have moved here or people heading to the polls for the first time, who are you as a candidate?
I grew up in Del City, Oklahoma. I graduated from Del City High School. I'm the first college graduate in my family. I was able to go on a 4-year Army scholarship. I got a commission in the United States Army, served my country faithfully as an infantryman for 21 years, fought in 3 wars. I've done a lot of hard things for my country. Have seen terrible things in my lifetime as a result of those wars. And we have a wonderful, wonderful country. And I've been all over, been to all 50 states. I've been to dozens of countries around the world. There's no place I'd rather be than in Oklahoma and in the United States of America.
Your opponent, Kendra Horn, let's talk about her for a second. She's the first female candidate in a decade to qualify for a 5th district general election here. She's trying to turn the Oklahoma City district blue for the first time since Watergate. And as we've kind of been talking about, and as you very well know, we're in a moment that is the women's movement right now. Mm-hmm. Can she do that?
I think whether you're a man or a woman, that most people understand this. The human race is a cooperative mutual enterprise. We don't succeed if we don't work together. I have, never tried to use my gender to try to have that as some qualification for office. I'm very proud of my party, the Republican Party, who elected the first woman to United States Congress. It was our party. The first woman governor was from our party. So, in terms of opportunity or something about dividing us on race, dividing us on gender, dividing us on socioeconomic background, dividing. Our motto is e pluribus unum, out of many one, not e pluribus pluribus, where we always stay subdivided in little groups and that we never get along. As a warrior, I know what it's like to defend our country. I know what it's like to work as a team. I know what it's like to do hard things and to, make concessions to one another so that you can get things done without being selfish and trying to think only of yourself. You can't do that. Our country is worth more than that.
Melissa wrote in, talking about you, is he pro-choice?
I don't see choice as even an equation. What I see is a human life. We're all created in God's image. People can talk about women's choice. What about the 30 million that have been murdered in the womb? Probably which 15.5 million of those are women, future women. What about those women's rights? I know that sounds harsh, but this isn't academic for me. 3 of my 5 children are adopted. Everyone deserves a chance to live. And so while you might have politicians that pontificate about this or that and what we need to do, and some man is telling a woman what to do, no. I look at a child. I look at 3 orphans that now are a part of my family, and I am convinced, and no one will dissuade me from it, that there's not a child out there that someone is not willing to love. Why not give somebody else a chance to do that? And let's not murder and take innocent life. We will be held accountable. We can carve up a child and call it a choice. We can do acts of barbarity and cover it with the veneer of civility. We can claim that these cruel acts are health care. But one thing that we can never do is remove our accountability before a mighty God. We can never do that.
So abortion's in no circumstance whatsoever.
I think that what you see in our current laws with the Hyde Amendment and a lot of that language is a good workable ground. My personal position is that we are created in God's image. And for me, these are not academic issues. I've actually adopted 3 children along with my wife, and we've raised them.
Said Social Security is not a government fund. Social Security is what was withheld from my earnings. It should be hands off for the elected.
The good news is no one thinks that ending Social Security is even a political option. I've not heard any talk like that in Washington. It's something that America said that it wanted in the 1960s or earlier in the 1930s. Things like that and Medicare in the 1960s were things that we said that we wanted as a nation, bipartisan. So our responsibility is to see how do we make it healthy and what do we do with it. And here's the good news. With 4% economic growth sustained, we actually have more people paying into Social Security than at any other time in our history right now. So when you have more people that are employed, they pay Social Security taxes. And that makes a healthy Social Security system. So we can try to put punishing regulations, and we can try to throw rocks and talk about how, some politician is going to put, my 80-year-old parents in wheelchairs and push them off the cliff. No, that's not going to happen. But what we need to do is have more people paying into Social Security. It's like a small business when you think about it. I can complain about cost, I can cut overhead, I can roll back benefits to my employees. I can fire employees. But at some point, I have to sell rifles, and I have to get the money that produces, and that makes things better. Same way with the economy. A good economy makes a healthy Social Security.
My last question to you for today is about economic security, and Trump has been amplifying this trade war with China. Are you behind that?
With regard to the construction market, I've met with a lot of folks. I've met with the steel producers. We have a lot of companies that use massive amounts of steel in Oklahoma, and aluminum and other things. The good news is that with the trade policies with regard to China, there were some inconsistencies with their trade on property rights, on steel dumping, on a number of other things that needed to be addressed. Now, with regard to Canada, where we get all of our aluminum from and a lot of our timber for the housing market, we've worked that out. We have worked out a new NAFTA agreement with them in Mexico, and so this is a very positive thing that we're seeing, and it's going to be more fair to Oklahomans. And as I had talked to the construction market, they were mostly concerned about the Canadian timber. Those issues have been worked out on a better trade deal.
All right, big thank you to Representative Russell there for stopping in again. He couldn't go live because of the severe weather yesterday, but we'll also be interviewing the Democratic candidate, Kendra Horn, on Friday morning. She'll get the same time as the representative did, and we will post both of those interviews onto our website.